Straighten it up.
There we go.
Just sit down, sir.
Got Jay-Z in the background. I love that little Marlon Brando on the wall.
Yeah, Marlon. We got Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Billy Joel, Michael Jackson, and Stevie Wonder.
Who's the other one? Oh, Michael Jackson. Okay, yeah. Cool. Right on. So is it Stefan? Stefan. Okay, just want to make sure I get that right.
No, that's all right.
Good to meet you.
Yeah. Let's start rolling. Bojesse, how are you?
I'm doing great. Stefan, what's up? How are you, man?
I'm great, mate. I'm great. Nice to meet you. Nick's told me a lot about you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to meet you too. Nick, my brother.
What's happening, Bo?
Good to see your face.
Good to see you too, man. How's things going in LA?
Well, first of all, let me say it's good to be seen because we're all just in this like suspension right now. But LA certainly has a really alarming, sort of thing going on. It's okay. I mean, quite frankly, it's a little alarming living in Los Angeles because it feels like the epicenter of all this COVID-19 stuff that's going on. So I think that I've done a pretty good job of staying optimistic and productive and healthy, which is key, and doing my part to, wear a mask, wash the hands, and socially distance. It's been tough, though,
Imagine, man. And anyone like close to you getting coronavirus over there or anything like that, or not really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you asked that question because, certainly people should know that it exists. I'm sure people do. I'm sure each person now has had some sort of interaction with somebody who's gotten it. But, because I'm an acting coach, I'm dealing with a lot of people online, coaching online. And so probably, a decent percentage of people that I coach have come down with the coronavirus. And then there's people that I know who, indirectly, could be a friend who have known for, a period of time. But I probably know 20 or 30 people that have gotten the virus.
Wow.
I don't know if I've lost anybody that I know, but I'm also not keeping track of everybody. So I hope that everyone's okay, certainly.
Wow, man, that's pretty intense to think about. Because look, in Australia and where we're situated at the moment, which is South Australia, it's pretty safe. We haven't had a case for maybe about over a month.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we do,
I'm so grateful to hear that. Sorry, Steph, I cut you off, but I just wanted to say that I think that you're doing something right in Oz, and we should take a page from your playbook because every day recently it's gotten worse and worse, and something needs to give.
Yeah, totally.
I know, and there's a lot of political figures like arguing on what's right and wrong. Different states are doing different things, so. Yeah, you can get into all that, but we'd be here for a couple of hours or days, I'd say, if we got that. But, Bojesse, I wanted to ask you, what's the for? Is it for a new role, or is it something coming up? Or because I don't think I've always seen you with a beard in some of your photos, but
I forgot it was even on my face until you just mentioned it. I'm so glad you're bringing it up because I don't know. I mean, as an actor, and you understand. As an artist, one of the things that I really enjoy is I love to just sort of grow the beard, and then if something comes my way that I have to use the beard for, or it becomes an excuse to shave the beard, then I have something to work with creatively. But then the other part of it is I like feeling a little feral. I like to feel. I like to feel a little, dare I say, down and dirty. It makes me feel more alive. So for me, it kind of reminds me that I'm grounded. I'm a real dude. I'm in this world and it's really happening. And the beard is also a metric for how long it's been, that we've been in this suspension, this COVID-19. Because literally, I think I started growing the beard the week into our safer at home lockdown here in Los Angeles. And I haven't touched it since. I've done little trims around the mouth and stuff just because it's growing inside my mouth and nose, and I wanted to keep that.
Yeah, it's in your food.
The way USA is going, that beard's going to be like Santa Claus by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend jokes that, that you're grooming yourself to play Santa Claus, and I think that's probably like, a good thing. I'd love to do that. I mean, we'll see. But also, I am reserving the beard against her wishes for something, very different than I've done before. I think, I'd like to come out of this whole suspension doing something meaningful that maybe the beard is a good fit for. It gives me that good feel and connection to whatever that piece is, that circumstance, and allows me to kind of find something new in a character that I haven't been able to explore.
Maybe a Rick Rubin biopic.
Yes.
The producer. Hey, get some writers. Let's do it, man. We need to hear that story.
What's crazy is, so, when I was younger, like when I first hit the scene in LA, like in 1988, Rick Rubin was obviously, like just coming out strong, like producing, and just everyone was sort of like, buzzing Rick Rubin and all of his collaborations. But in 88, 89, 90, Rick was always out on the scene, in clubs, at the coolest bars. Wasn't an oversaturated market of nightclubs then. It was like there was a couple spots, promoted by this one guy, Brent Bolthouse, who was a friend of mine. And it was like a small contingency of people that would come out, pre-internet, pre-cell phone. And so like you had to be in the know and you kind of had to know people. But Rick was out all the time. And I watched him. I literally observed him grow the beard. Like he came onto the scene with a relatively clean shaven face with maybe like a little mustache and a little goatee or something. And the hair was kind of, right, like Beastie Boys era, like right when they were first popping. And I remember watching him like evolve into that character. He got real kind of like, like Zen in a cool way. Like he elevated his whole vibe and spirit, and the beard was a big part of that. And it's funny you mentioned that, because honestly, my brothers, like I feel I'm on that path on the one hand, and the beard does help me like sort of embrace that each day.
That's awesome. Because you're free. You're not, when you shave your beard, you're conforming to like a corporate job, or you've got to keep it clean because you've got an interview. But for you, it's just being the metaphor I take from it is you're just free. You're letting it grow out. You don't have to have a clean cut hairstyle or a look that is something that is going to work at all these places that have rules and stuff.
Yeah, I think 100%. And I think now we all have permission, to kind of reintroduce ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because of COVID-19, and sort of like reinvent from an authentic, organic place, and start there as a platform to sort of bring forward to ourselves and life something meaningful, something connected to a good feel, a good sense of self, and what we can do to make a meaningful change in this new way of looking at the world post-pandemic. Because I think we all have gotten, too caught up in excess, and we're putting ourselves in boxes. And I think from an artistic point of view, it's really, if I look at the silver lining of COVID-19, it's allowed me to see a clear path to where my voice is, and it feels good. And the beard has helped me sort of define that and pull myself towards that. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get rid of it or use it, but to our point, it's been kind of soothing.
Yeah, for everything.
That's awesome, Bo. Man, just back to what you were saying, because I don't know these stories. So when I came to LA, you coached me for a few lessons. We got to know each other a little bit, through the art and stuff like that. And, you taught me a lot about just grounding myself and being who I am. Now it's your turn. Now, you were talking about the late 80s when you came on the scene.
Yeah.
What was it like? Like, how did you break in? Like, because, LA is a big city. You know what I mean? Like, compared to like anything in Australia. And, everyone listens around Australia. But like, what was it like breaking into the scene? How did you do it?
Well, I love that question, because it brings me back to a nostalgic place where it was also very exciting and so brand new. And I just remember, I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and I've lived in LA ever since 1988. But I remember when I was in high school, probably mid-80s, and I already had planned to move to LA. I knew that my plan was I was going to pack up the car and drive from San Francisco to LA and just go for an acting career. I kind of knew that I wanted to do that. I had that fire. I knew that that's what I wanted, and I had the drive. And I had been modeling. I was doing like some catalog work in San Francisco and doing well as a catalog model. And I'd done some commercials and gotten my SAG card, my Screen Actors Guild SAG card, which is hard for an actor to achieve even when you're in Los Angeles. And I'd gotten it probably, I think, my senior year in high school. And it was like, okay, this is interesting, because I didn't really understand what it meant to get the SAG card. And we can talk about that in a minute. But like, what that did was it really set me up for some pretty quick success in terms of like hitting the ground running once I got to LA. I had a family friend who was a friend of my dad's, who's a musician.
Right.
And he was like, okay, you're moving to LA. I'm going to write down these 3 names, look these people up. You should study acting when you get down there. And one of them was Stella Adler.
Wow.
Ooh.
So he had Stella's personal phone number.
Whoa. On that piece of paper.
So this is, not someone that worked or coached for the conservatory, Stella Adler Conservatory Theater, but Stella's number. It was Stella Adler's home phone number. There were no cell phones, and I guess there was answer machines. Anyway, and I didn't know who she was. There was no internet. You couldn't search this stuff. And, I hadn't read any books about acting. I was a young kid. And I just was driven and wanted to get down there, and was watching tons of movie and television, and had, people that I looked up to, like Johnny Depp and Matt Dillon and Robert Downey Jr. and River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves and, a bunch of people. We'll talk about those guys for sure. But I ended up meeting a publicist friend before I did the move to LA, like in, I think, my sophomore year. And my publicist friend invited me to come down to LA and just kind of see what LA was about. He was the publicist for Johnny Depp, C. Thomas Howell. Who else did he have? I think he had a bunch of really interesting people, but Tommy Howell and Johnny Depp and Charlie Sheen, huge. And this is 1986, 87. So he was my first contact friend. Flew down for like 3-4 days. He took me to some sets of some sitcoms and introduced me to some people. He took me to the Jay Leno show, met Jay, did all these things as like a 16-year-old kid.
Wow.
Went back to San Francisco. I got lucky in that. And then got my plan together, graduated high school, moved to LA in 1988, packed up my car, got down there, stayed on some friends' couches, had a little bit of money from the modeling stuff, and then I had Stella Adler's phone number. So I remember I signed up for, I think it was like Thursday class scene study or something. I can't remember how she categorized her class. And I went. And I remember the first day I drove to the Stella Adler Conservatory Theater, and now it's on Hollywood Boulevard. It used to be on Ivar. And I remember getting there, and there was just something kind of off about it for me.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. So I stayed with it for a second, and I kind of put myself into it, and it was a family friend referral. I called her. She got me signed up. She said, I'll see you when you get down here, once you move, and I'll see you for the first day of class, the whole thing. Remember, I was in her class, and I was in her class with Mark Ruffalo.
What?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, basically, it was Benicio del Toro. This is 1988.
Yeah, they
went, no, yeah.
It was just like, it was just then.
And they were nobody then.
Yeah.
Those guys we were all just like doe-eyed, like, okay, let's do this. But there was something in my heart, I can't speak for them, but something in my heart that just knew this is what I wanted to do. And I had a drive to be a storyteller, to get up there, face my fears, my intrepidation, my all the things, that can shut someone down, or also give them permission to step forward into that thing. And 3, 4, 5 weeks into the conservatory class with her, I remember I brought some scene work up, and it was a scene where I was a paraplegic young man, and I had no use of my legs. I can't remember what the scene was. And I remember I duct taped my legs together so I couldn't walk when I got out of my car, and I crawled into the theater.
Yeah.
Asked all my classmates into my seat, waited to be called onto stage, crawled onto stage, did my performance. And I remember Stella ripped me a new one. She hated it. She thought it was terrible. She hated that I taped my legs. She hated that I was fully in this character, and she hated that I wasn't acting. And right then and there, I was like, I'm done. So I had words with her. We had some words.
So in front of everyone? Did you guys have words?
Yeah. Yeah. It was bad. You know, it was a fuck you Stella kind of moment, right? Because it felt shitty. It wasn't uplifted. It wasn't supportive. It wasn't encouraging. It wasn't even a coachable moment. It was just complete judgment. That's why I share the story. And it made me withdraw from craft before I even understood what craft was. You know, 17. I was 17 years old, by the way. 17 years old. Moved to LA, 17 years old. So I'm in class with Ruffalo and Benicio, and I'm doing what I described, and I'm saying, fuck you, Stella, I'm done. And I was working, this is a long answer to your question, but it's worth it. I was working at the same time to make ends meet in LA because I wasn't modeling anymore. I gave that up to be an actor, you know? Yeah. And so I was 17 years old, and I was a receptionist at a workout gym, Sports Connection, I think it was. It was in the Valley on Sepulveda. This was a place where like all the TV actors, all the TV stars went and played tennis. Imagine this is 88, 89, where it's like a tennis club with a little bit of a gym, very Jane Fonda, you know, leotards to the gym, the whole thing, right? But everywhere you looked, there was somebody kind of famous, you know? And I was a receptionist there. And I remember one day, this woman walks in, elderly, probably in her late 60s, a little heavy set, and she sits down, and there's a little frozen yogurt kind of little kiosk to the left of the thing, you know, as you're walking in. And my manager says to me, Bojesse, you need to go meet that woman. And I said, how come? And he goes, that woman is 2-time Academy Award winning Shelley Winters.
What?
Yeah.
And so, this is like prime time Hollywood though. Like,
this is the golden age of. This is not the golden age. This is the golden age of before it got really fucked up in the 90s and 2000s and now. Yeah. And I'll explain that. So it was like, you know, people would talk to each other. So anyway, he set up an introduction and he said, Shelley, you need to meet this kid, Bojesse. He's here to be an actor. And at this point, I guess I instilled some confidence in my manager, and he saw something in me, and he was, you know, he was happy to set this this impromptu introduction up with Shelley Winters. I didn't know who Shelley was. Again, no internet, no acting books. I didn't read. You know, I'm 17 years old. I'm a surfer turned actor because I want to be an actor, but I didn't read anything. You know what I mean? And so I didn't know who she was. And this is a woman, you know, who in her prime, in her 20s and 30s, was roommates with Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, dated, you know, Warren Beatty, you know, Marlon Brando, you name it, and was basically the Marlon Brando of female actors. Yeah, you know, a level. Actor, a badass Shelley Winters, and she was also, and I didn't know this at the time, she was a board member of the Actors Studio. Okay, wow. Not the Actors Studio Institute, but the Actors Studio, Lee Strasberg's original Actors Studio. And so the West Coast division of that, which was an old, decrepit 2-story house, and the garage was converted into a theater, was the West Coast Actors Studio. Yep. And you could not sign up, you could not pay for classes, you had to be invited only to observe, and you had to audition for the board, and you had to be, basically you had to be, you know, you had to be, you had to win their confidence. You had to be accepted into, you had to become a member. And once you're a member, then you can work towards being a lifetime member. And so going backwards, I talked to Shelley, and she says to me, so you want to be an actor? And I had no idea who this woman was, right? I had very little interest. You know, I'm a 17-year-old kid. She's, you know, I'm just humoring her. Yeah, quick conversation. She says, why do you want to be an actor? And then it clicked. I said, and it just, my instincts came, and this is, I coached this answer, I coached this. I said to her, I said, the heart wants what the heart wants. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it's absolutely true. The heart wants what the heart wants. When you know inside it's your calling, there's something about that experience to tell your story through an imaginary circumstance where life and art can come together at the same moment, and there's something meaningful that happens for the human being, you know, that it gives meaningful change to the moment. There's something very powerful about that. But I understood that then, not as well as I do now, but I understood it. So my answer was felt. She felt that answer. I could tell, because then she flipped over a business card, and she wrote her home phone number down, and she wrote 3 words down. And she wrote down imagination, industry, and intelligence. She said, call me when you understand what those 3 words mean to you.
Wow.
Imagination, industry, and intelligence. And so for me, and then, we had a couple little bits of small talk, and then, I went about my business. But she made an impact on me. And then I was sort of like, who's that woman? And then my manager filled in some of the blanks. And I knew there was something there to follow up on. She also said to me, actually, not yet. So I called her, a week later, and I said, okay, I understand what imagination means. And I explained it to her, the ability to tap into something, to really see and feel and visualize circumstance, and then emotionally connect to that thing using your imagination with permission to open up your mind and connect head to heart to that thing and see and feel that thing and to immerse yourself into that circumstance, right? So, so that connected the dot on imagination. And then industry, to understand how to network, how to identify who the players are in your industry, to understand how the game works, how to play the game, who the players are, and what your part in that game is, and your contribution to playing that part, because you believe it to be true, it can be true. And so understanding the way the industry functions is to understand the industry, right? And then the intelligence was that you have to do all of those things, connect your imagination and industry, art and commerce, right? Craft and career, to something smart. So making smart choices, smart, strong, emotionally connected choices, not just making choices because you might get a payday or, get likes and followers nowadays, but because it matters, it means something. So the intelligent choice.
Yeah, wow, okay.
To read something and say, this is smart, this speaks to me, this is something I want to do, is basically to say it's worth going after and pursuing it, right? And again, it comes back to what I said to her, the heart wants what the heart wants.
Wow.
And so once she was like, okay, this kid, because I was 17, gets it. She said, I have one more assignment for you. She goes, go get this book at Samuel French Bookstore. And Samuel French Bookstores, I think you can get stuff online anymore, but I think they've closed all the stores, which is a shame. You can get all your stuff, all things film, right? Acting books, writing books, directing books, you name it, wonderful books. So she goes, go to Samuel French and buy Stanislavski's Preparation of Building a Character. And she goes, read the book, but more importantly, memorize the philosophy. And she said, then call me back and, tell me what that means to you. So the philosophy, and I never forgot this, in short, was the actor should not imitate or impersonate, but that we should become the part by working on the link between the role and the reality of our own lives and emotions. In short,
that Stella had told you.
And she's a student of that, wasn't she?
Absolutely. So, I'll get to that because Stanislavski informed the Strasberg method. Absolutely. Yeah. So it all derived from Stanislavski's point of view on that. But there was more to that. So in short, free your imagination and develop complete self-awareness, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so I understood basically when you write something, if you're the writer, I'm the actor, and I have to understand the writer's intention. I have to understand and identify why it exists as a piece of storytelling. And then I have to start to see and feel and emotionally connect to that circumstance in a way that elevates your writing in the example, so I can start to see myself in that circumstance, so I can build my choices off of who I am. What do I want? How do I feel? How do I feel about the other person? And so basically, she gave me the keys to my own permission to really crack myself open as an artist and go forward and become these people, not play these people from the inside out, not to play the exterior of the character, the outline of a character, the way, say, Stella would want you to do it, where you bounce off the exterior of the character. You don't actually feel the character, you play the character.
Yeah.
Shelley wants to get inside that writing and make it yours. Take your writing to the next level. Do my job, my responsibility, which is to bring life, my own experience to what this means to me. And so you asked, where did I get started? How did I get started? It started because I understood what craft meant and what it means to the artist and what it meant to me at a very early age by way of Shelley Winters mentoring.
Wow.
And there's a lot there. I mean, from there, I went to the actor's studio, observed, auditioned, was mentored and coached privately by Shelley, became her friend, until she passed away. But my acting career kicked off and started going in different places with some TV work. And then certainly Point Break kind of was my big break. But yeah, I mean, that's where the craft really kicked in. Getting agents and managers sort of came by surprise. You know, I ended up befriending some celebrity actors that were on TV shows that were in my peer group. David Faustino, Bud Bundy from Married with Children. He played the son on Married with Children.
I was actually going to ask about that.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. I said to Nick, I said, I want to ask Bojesse. I was like, if you became friends with like Christina Applegate, because she was young. Well, she would have been around your age or not?
So she was my age. She might be, I think Chris might be a year older than me, but David at the time, I think was like 15, couple years younger. So my friends, because of that same job I had, my coworker, Rainbow, I was Bo and he was Bojesse, but he was Rainbow. And Rainbow's mom was the script supervisor on Married with Children. Wow. So we would visit the Married with Children set during the week. And he was also best friends with David Faustino because they were the same age and would play together, you know, and hang out. And then when they got to be teenagers, would just like hang out and got into hip hop. And I was real good friends with Rainbow. So I became Big Bo. He was Little Bo. And our whole crew would go hang out at Sunset Gower Studios where they would film like Who's the Boss and Married with Children and my two dads or no my some other shows I'm forgetting now but all the, so it was like, you know, Soleil Moonfry from Punky Brewster and Balthazar Getty and Brian Austin Green and David Faustino and Corky Nemec and Rainbow and myself, and the list goes on and on and on. But that was our time of all hanging out. And so what happened was, I think that I was at somebody's birthday party and somebody's agent walked up to me, just, you know, because we were all a crew of kids that were all young actors, and said, you know, are you an actor? And I said, yeah. And they said, you know, you have an agent. It's one of those things. That person ended up being my agent. Wow. And I took a meeting with that person, caught a vibe. And then that person got me into some TV gigs. And then I think I did Married with Children because David got me an audition and played Christine Applegate's boyfriend on the show for, you know, a few episodes. And it was great because she was a friend anyway. And so it was just a fun thing. And we were on that set probably, I don't know, for 2 years, probably every Friday for 2 shows, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. And then we'd all go out and party at night and do it all, just hanging out, just friends. But it wasn't until Brian Austin Green, this is before 90210. Brian Austin Green, who played David Silver on 90210, was my dear friend, also part of our crew. And Brian had an audition for this movie called Riders on the Storm. And it was about surfers who rob banks. You know where I'm going with this. All right. Yeah. So he goes, you surf, man. He goes, you know, can you warm me up on this thing? Can we run some lines? Can you tell me what this line means? What's the vibe? What's the feel? Because a whole surf dialogue thing, big monologues, and it was the campfire scene in Point Break, right? And I'll get into that in a second. But what's great about that is, like, he warmed me up, I warmed him up, and then he's like, "Can you drive my car so I can run lines and just get really focused on my audition?" So we drove across town. I drove him in his car, right? I had a flannel and like some long, cool shorts on, and, you know, looked like that. I looked like Gromit from Point Break, long hair, you know, vibe. I had that Gromit look. And we get to the audition. It was at the Lantana Center, which is a big center for productions and casting on the west side of LA. And I walk up with Brian. He's pretty much off book and ready, but he's holding the paper, right?
Yeah.
I always encourage actors to try not to hold the paper. So there's a point to this. And so we get up there. He signs in. It's towards the end of the day. He goes in for his audition. He comes out and he goes, "Okay, bro, let's go." That's Brian's voice. I love him. He's one of my dearest. "Okay, bro, let's go." And then casting director Rick Pagano walks out and he sees me and he goes, "Are you next?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "Are you an actor?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're next." So it wasn't my audition, right? I have Brian's keys in my pocket. I've got his dialogue memorized in my head because I warmed him up.
It's so cool.
So I walk straight past Brian, and Brian goes, "Bro, you can't go, man. This isn't your audition. This is cool." I said, "I'll see you in a minute." And I had his keys, so he couldn't go anywhere. He said, sit out there and wait for me, right? So I walk into the audition. I got nothing to lose, everything to gain. I'm totally like confident because, you know, it's like, fuck it, this guy's me anyway. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason I'm walking forward. I got this stuff. So he goes, okay, stand on that chair and you know, just hold the lines and do the best you can to kind of get through the material. I said, it's cool. I don't need the pages. I'm good. He's like, huh? You can see his head kind of cock, and then he goes, okay. He's like, whenever you're ready. There was no camera in the room, just him watching, just pre-reading me. If they like what you see, they bring you back. So, so I do it, and it's a whole, you know, drop down the pit, man. 25 feet straight down your balls, man. Your balls are about this big, and the whole thing's fucking roaring, right? Pushing you forward like you're a hood owner on a freight train or something, man. You know, it's that whole like,
yeah.
I took my time with it. I really got into it. And he goes, hold on a second. I'll be right back. He leaves the room. I'm still standing on the chair. Leaves the room. He comes back about 2-3 minutes later with Catherine Bigelow, who's the director of the movie. Okay. Catherine Bigelow directed Zero Dark 30, Point Break, The Hurt Locker, major, massive, you know, married to Jim Cameron at the time. They were making Point Break. I didn't know who she was. I wasn't, you know. So the director comes back in the room, Catherine Bigelow. He looks at me, he goes, okay, do that again.
That's wild.
I did it again. She hires me on the spot. She goes, you're hired. It was it. So that's how I got that. Yeah. And so literally I walked out of that room. She goes, well, I think Rick Pagano, the casting director, says, we'll call your agents. We'll work everything out. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Literally, they were starting their first table read at 7 a.m. the next day at that very production office. And so over the course of the next, I don't know, 6 hours, again, pre-cell phones, right? So my beeper's blowing up. My answer machine's got message. My agent's going, what the fuck? What just happened? How did you get this job? You're booked for 12 weeks of work on this major film starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, and they want you to start tomorrow at 7 a.m., and they need you to read this 180-page script by tomorrow, 7 a.m. And it was this whole thing. I got this script messengered to me. It had all these pink and blue pages, and it was 180 pages, and it was called Riders on the Storm, you know? So they changed the name, obviously, but I just remember reading it, and then waking up the next day and sitting on the floor at like 6:30 in the morning before everyone got there and finishing the read and watching Gary Busey walk in and Patrick Swayze walk in, John Philbin and James LeGros, and then Keanu and Lori Petty. And it was Michael Wincott, who was cast before Lee Turgidson in the role of Rosie, was at the table read. And so it was all these wonderful people. And I'm like, holy shit, this is happening. And that really kicked off my career because that 12 weeks of work, 3 times 4 is 12, so 3 months of work, turned into 12 months of work because the movie just kept shooting and shooting and shooting because James Cameron executive produced the movie because he was married to Catherine Bigelow, and they wanted to keep shooting surfing sequences, more scenes, adding, subtracting, so flying us back and forth to Hawaii. So I worked on that movie for a year.
Wow, and what a movie, man. Fuck.
Yeah.
By the time I came off that movie, everyone in town wanted to see who Bojesse was, which was cool.
That's mad.
That's amazing.
It put me into some really interesting situations, you know, in casting offices to compete against other wonderful actors, you know, friends like Ethan Hawke and Stephen Dorff and Christian Slater, you know, who basically had the same sort of look and feel and vibe that I suppose I do, but they had, you know, they were celebrities, right? And I was in the mix with those guys and getting close. And sometimes it would go my way. Most of the time it went their way, but I was in the mix. And so that's kind of what really turned the corner. And that was 1991. Only 2 years or a year and a half after I hit LA. But really, I worked on that movie for a year. So like, I think I hit LA, and within the first year, I had done Married with Children, Pump Up the Volume, Ferris Bueller, a couple other movies, and then I got Point Break, and it was like, yeah.
That's like you even rolling off the names of people, films, casting agents, directors, like you said before, it was like the cool era of Hollywood. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like we still remember it now, and it's 2020. You know,
and we're from a little city in Australia.
Yeah, think about that. We grew up in a little city in Australia, and we know every name that you're rolling off, and so do the people listening. You know what I mean? That's the cool thing.
Yeah, that's the power.
That's so important, you guys. I love hearing that because there's nothing more exciting than being excited about what you want to do and what you are doing and pursuing it and loving what you do, even against the odds. Nick, you and I have talked about this. It's like It's just the life that's worth living for, you know? And so what happens is you end up connecting with other like-minded, like-feeling individuals, and you build a community of creatives. Casting offices, writers, directors, collaborators, it doesn't matter, actors, doesn't matter. You go out there and you do, it will stick to you. It is a shame that we're sort of caught up in this this online thing that's an oversaturated market where there's less and less of relationships being built and cultivated through direct interaction. Because once upon a time, there was the general meeting, which was a beautiful thing. Like you could sit down with a casting person coming off a movie like Point Break, for example, and sit and talk to that casting person, get to know one another. And that person would do that with maybe 5 or 10 other actors that they really liked, that where the vibe was really there. They'd take your headshot, they'd put it on the wall, and then everything they're casting, they're like, okay, I want Nick and Stefan and Bojesse to come in, and you'd always end up with something because it was a smaller community, more direct. Now it's an oversaturated market. That's a bad thing. The good thing is now we have more access to more content and we have more access to people. So, you know, it balances itself out. So I'm not worried about it. But yeah, those were the good old days.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question because, like, you know, Mark, Benicio, Johnny Depp, like, you know, and you were competing against those guys. Even the photos we shared on Instagram was like you and Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
You know, you guys like hand in hand hanging out. So like with those big guys, were you very close with them? Like, was there anyone in particular that you grew fond of or anything like that? Or
yeah, I mean, all those guys, I admired every single one of those obvious figures. So for me, I knew that I was at a disadvantage because they were movie or TV stars. But on the other hand, I felt like my advantage was my passion and my dedication, my commitment to craft and just embracing who I am. And ultimately, and I coach this, is just really understanding that, you know, I bring my own unique individuality to everything. There's only one me. There's only one each one of us, right? So why try to play or pretend to be something we're not? So I tried not to emanate the people I looked up to, but I was connected to a lot of people that drew me to storytelling. You know, I love Keanu. Keanu to this day is one of my dear friends. Like, I speak to Keanu still. I spoke to him in the last 2-3 months quite a few times because we're doing some business together. But Keanu was one of the first guys that I met, obviously, on the film.
I'm going to ask you, is it true how much of a beautiful human being he is?
Absolutely.
Because you see stories online, he's like getting up for people on the subway.
Yeah.
You know, he some of the, like, his philosophies on life and stuff is just so grounding. Like, is that all so real?
It's amazing because I talk about this anytime Keanu comes up. Like, you really can't find any negative press on Keanu. Keanu makes a real effort to just be himself and to be as grounded and honest and thoughtful and compassionate and caring a guy and artistic. And you know, he's a true introvert. And I just had a conversation with him probably a month and a half ago about reading. Like, I'm not an avid reader. I love the idea of reading. I'm not disciplined. I hope when I get older, as I get older, I'll read more. But Keanu loves to read. And when we did Point Break, every time we would travel, whether it be in a car or on an airplane, because we traveled together a lot for Point Break, you know, he would just have books and books and books in his, like, he wouldn't bring bags. He'd just bring books, and he just carry books with him, and he would just read. The most intellectual, the most introverted and artistic and caring, compassionate, vulnerable guy, but certainly found his voice. And he says, admittedly, in this last conversation I had with him, that Point Break changed his life. It gave him a sense of confidence that he belonged in this business.
Wow.
I think when I was working with him, and he'll admit this, I think the one thing that a guy like Keanu, and this is a really interesting observation for any movie star really, is that when studios get a hold of you and they try to sort of mold and shape you into this thing and make you the face of whatever genre they're trying to sell, it feels like it goes fast, you know, and if you're not sort of at the tip of that spear, you feel sometimes like maybe you're not worthy or you're not supposed to be in that position. And I could feel the tug of war, because that was a time when he had dual billing with Swayze. Okay, so they were grooming Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze dual billing instead of like Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, or Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. As far as billing position, it was like a neutral thing. And this was a first for Keanu. And this was interesting because Swayze literally had the biggest movie in the world in theaters at the time we were filming. It was Ghost.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. Keanu, that was still an early big role for him. I think before that was like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey or something, maybe. Yes. Whereas Swayze, I feel like he was hitting his strides. He was like, he'd probably already done Dirty Dancing.
You're talking about Swayze? Yes. Swayze did Dirty Dancing. And so the biggest movie... the biggest movie for Swayze to date was Ghost. It was in the theaters. It was giant. He was a mega star at the time. And Keanu was doing, he had done Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Bogus Journey came after Point Break.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And then he had done like The River's Edge and some other really cool films. Maybe he did Parenthood. I can't remember. But Keanu was this cool, like up and coming, really interesting guy to the studio system. And I just remember the way he handled the transition between this kind of indie, SE hitting kind of drifter, like, the Keanu that we know and love, to movie star guy was really interesting. I saw him literally metamorphosize from not really feeling comfortable doing it to just embracing that role, but doing it on his terms.
I like that.
Putting his foot down and saying, if we're going to do this, I'm all in, but we're going to do it the way I need to do it. And I want to be smart and intellectual. And that harkens back to the intelligence thing that Shelley Winters told me, which is to be smart about taking charge of the industry and the way the industry tries to manipulate you potentially. So he did it to his advantage in an authentic way. And he has become this beautiful human being as a result, who lives this wonderful life. He's a wonderful man. So in answer to your question, he's everything that you think he is. He's a beautiful, beautiful gentleman.
That's very so amazing.
That makes me feel really, really happy to know that you guys are still friends. Because like when I saw, obviously I knew that you were in Point Break, and I was like, I wonder if like Bo and him still talk, because Keanu's the kind of guy that's just got so much time for everyone. Like all the stuff I read about him, he's actually a really inspiring guy. So I wanted to ask you that, and there you go. You still chat. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, he's an amazing dude. He's very close to my heart. Love the guy.
What I like, because I've got a few guys I looked up to in Hollywood. Like, I don't know if you can answer if you've met them, but like someone like Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
What about young Mickey Rourke? To me, is like one of the coolest actors and one of the most naturally gifted people I've seen on screen. Like he reminds me of Marlon Brando, but like the '80s version. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about Mickey for a long time. First of all, I agree with you. I mean, I'm looking at the picture of Marlon Brando, and when I saw Mickey in Rumblefish and Angel Heart and the list goes on and on. Barfly and Diner. I mean, you name all the early Mickey Rourke stuff.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. 9.5 Weeks. I mean, Mickey Rourke is Marlon Brando. Reincarnated. Like it's cool. And so I wrote this movie with a partner of mine, and we spent a bunch of years trying to raise money for it to make it as a feature film vehicle for us to co-direct, co-produce, co-star in, and long story short, ended up going to Mickey Rourke through a friend, and Mickey said yes. And Mickey ended up being the reason I was able to raise the money to make the movie. So I think we raised like just under $1 million to make the movie, which was a lot of money. Still is a lot of money. It was a lot of money in the I think it was like 1996, mid 90s, and we were shooting on film, so there was no digital at that point. It was all film, and so it's expensive, So we booked Mickey for 3 weeks of work on a 4-week shoot and paid him a ton of money per week. And I remember when Mickey said yes, part of his deal was, before I close this deal, yes, I'll do the money, or I'll do the film for the money, but I need to meet the filmmaker. So I remember I sat down with Mickey, me and my partner, sat down with Mickey in Sunset Plaza at Le Peep Four. It was a French restaurant on the Sunset Plaza outside. And Mickey shows up, and we sit down together, and I'm wearing some like Gucci sunglasses, and it's it's the daytime, it's lunchtime or whatever, the 1 to 2 p.m. industry lunch hour, whatever, 1995, 96. And Mickey shows up with the cowboy hat, and and he's Mickey, right? Mickey kind of like Mickey, and I love Mickey, but Mickey kind of in between being kind of hot. You know what I mean? Like Mickey Rourke in some pretty terrible movies that era, like almost sad, but he understands. It happens. And he said to me, "So you're going to direct this movie?" Because I think I was like 25 years old. Wow. And he goes, "You're the director. You're directing this movie?" And I go, yeah. I said, yeah, I am. And he goes, and I think he goes, well, tell me why you're making this movie. Tell me why I should do this movie with you. And I can't remember exactly verbatim, but I got him excited about my creative vision and my sense of direction and my capability to sort of, fearlessly communicate to him and articulate a sense of direction he could follow. And I could see in his eyes that he hadn't been talked to like that in a while. Like he hadn't worked with the director that was that direct with him, that wouldn't just give him everything he wants. I would say no to him, or I would say, no, this is what we're doing and this is what I need you to do. And this is why I want you to do it. And this is why you're great to do it. I would encourage him, but I would also be firm, as a director should be. But also that way you don't get walked over by guys like that, because the guy's a legend, right? And sometimes when they see a director who isn't directing, who doesn't have a sense of direction, no voice, they'll just do whatever they want and get through it, and sometimes sabotage it because, it's like, shame on you for not knowing what you're doing, director, in a way, right? So I knew better, and I was assertive. And he said at the end of the thing, he goes, because it was a partner, and my former partner at the time, he'll hate me for saying this, but Mickey looked at me and he said, we were co-directing the thing, but he looked at me and he goes, I'll only do the movie if I get to deal with you.
Wow.
instead of the other guy I was partnered with. Yeah. And he said, I'll call you boss, but you're the only person I want to deal with on this movie. I don't want to talk to ADs. I don't want to talk to PAs. I'll only communicate with you, Bojesse.
He was hard to work with, huh?
Well, it sounds like it, right? But so Mickey was, I don't like that as a 50-year-old man. If I were directing a movie or television, I would never agree to that. That's just, no, you know what I mean? Like, we have to respect the collaborative effort and the chain of things, right? So I would have passed on him now, but I love him. But it's true. I love Mickey. You can't do that to people. But we signed up for the thing. We went into the thing. And then I quickly became Mickey's friend. He became my friend. He would call me and we would talk for hours.
Wow, man.
About life and about his love lost and, things that were close to him and how it related to the story, not related to the story. And we'd be on phone calls, and I appreciated those phone calls. They were a lot longer than I think I needed to be on those calls, but we had those phone calls, and it brought me really close to Mickey. And I understood who Mickey Rourke is because of that. And then I was able to get what I needed for the most part as a director. But my feeling about Mickey after that and now, to come full circle, is that he's a one of a kind. He's Mickey Rourke. He's magic. You never know what he's going to do or give you in the moment. And when he's on and when he cares, you're going to get something electrifyingly special from him. And he's Mickey Rourke. So I love the guy. Nothing but love,
That's awesome, man. And just one more. Just have to ask you a question. Did you take Drew Barrymore? Was that a date that night?
So Drew was my girlfriend for a period of time, and we became. So the picture I think that you're referencing was at the premiere of My Own Private Idaho, which starred Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix, obviously a Gus Van Sant film. So I went to the premiere of that because Keanu was in the movie, and Keanu was my friend, and Drew was my girlfriend at the time, and so that was we just happened to be at that premiere when that photograph or those photographs were taken. Yeah, but Drew was somebody I met, and we became fast friends, and it was a special relationship because it wasn't necessarily in that sort of intimate way. It was more friendship, and we loved that friendship, and we spent a lot of time with each other for maybe 6 months to a year, and then nothing happened. But I think what happened on my end is I think that I was with another, I was in another relationship, kind of back and forth, and she got pregnant, and I had a child very young, and that took me in that direction, and then we kind of lost touch for a while. But in spirit and in connection through friends and business partners and associates, we stay in touch still, which is wonderful. I love Drew. She's amazing.
She's awesome. Wow. Yeah, so I just want to get that out of my, and of course, like Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah. You guys do any work together or in contact and stuff like that?
I mean, Depp is amazing. So Depp was probably like my biggest inspiration to move to LA because I was watching 21 Jump Street in the early to late 80s. And it was like, I had been a film buff up in TV, but really what got me into TV was Johnny Depp and 21 Jump Street. And I said, that's what I want to do. I'm moving to LA to get on a TV show. What that guy's doing is what I want to be doing. That was 1987, 88. And so for me, one of the first guys I met was Johnny Depp through my friend Jeff Ballard, who's a publicist, who was his publicist, C. Thomas Howell, Charlie Sheen, and some others. And so I met Depp at Jeff Ballard's house. And he was slightly available, kind of there. He was very to himself. And so I had some limited interaction with him. But then over the years, I would run into him at events. I went to premieres and things, where he was the star of the movie and would say hello to him. And then his ex-wife, because Depp was married before he became an actor and he lived in Florida, he moved to LA with his wife, Lori Depp, and they lived in their car. And I think the story goes that they lived in their car until they met Nick Cage and Crispin Glover, and then they moved in with Crispin Glover and Nick Cage at the Fontenoy Hotel, which is right off Hollywood Boulevard, and it all kind of like jumped off from there because that was their generation of people. So I became friends with Lori Depp through Christina Applegate, because Johnny Depp and Christina Applegate were good friends because Christina Applegate did some guest star role on 21 Jump Street, and they hit it off and became friends. And so it was all kind of secular that way, and we'd all kind of see each other coming through, and but I didn't spend a lot of time with Depp, but yeah.
Could I ask you? I wanted to bring it to now, Bo. You've actually acted with an Oscar winner.
Yeah, quite a few.
Quite a few, but I know there's a certain person. I'm just building up the drum roll here. I think he's probably one of the best actors in the game right now, top 5, I'd say for me. And I just watched Moonlight recently, and Mahershala Ali, man, what was it like working with him? For me, he feels like watching him. I saw him in Green Book. Oh my God, the guy is amazing. I love him. What was it like working with him on True Detective season 3?
I'm so honored and excited to answer that question, because Mahershala is a very special human being. I too, before I started shooting True Detective season 3, had, I was confident and ready and excited and coaching myself into confidence before I got, before I flew to location and got there. But it was one of those things where up until the moment I met him, I just wasn't sure how I was going to be received one way or another, because he was the lead actor in this series. I loved him in Moonlight. He just had won the Academy Award, Best Supporting Actor for Moonlight. And I loved him as Remy on House of Cards. I don't know if you go back and watch House of Cards, he's Remy. And I love that series. And I was like, who is this actor? Before Moonlight, I was like, this guy's great. And then I was like, oh, Moonlight, there's that guy from House of Cards. So all this actor connection, love for craft, and it was like, wow, I really like this guy. So when I saw that Mahershala was the lead opposite Stephen Dorff, who's my friend for 30 years, we'll talk about Stephen in a minute. But I was like, oh, this is exciting, but also terrifying at the same time. Also because True Detective is one of those shows where, especially season 1, was so brilliant, so genius, so gritty, and so raw. And it's HBO, and it's like you have to live up to an expectation. So everything was heightened, all my senses. Wow. When I got to set to do episode 3, where I first appear, I remember they walked me to set, and Nick Pizzolatto, who's the show creator and was directing, and the writer, and was directing that episode. I connected with him. I'd already seen Steven in hair and makeup, and I hadn't met Mahersh yet. And I got to the set, and I'm kind of talking with Nick Pizzolatto. We're just doing some okay, so this is kind of the rough way. I kind of see the scene, All of a sudden, Mahershala just kind of steps right next to me, because he's there to kind of check in, like he's been called, first team's been called in. And he's standing right next to me, big guy, he's like 6'2". And I'm like, I go, hey man, how's it? But he right up to me and just was like, hey man, how are you? Mahershala. And he's like, thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Made an effort to say thank you for being here. And it was one of those sentiments that I don't know or even care if he says it to everyone, because he's that guy, whoever it is. Thank you for your contribution to our wonderful show. Yeah. Or he actually was speaking to me because he knows who I am or not, right? It didn't matter. It just felt good. He put me at ease. And I think that's huge because there was so much intensity around that show having to be good coming off of season 2, which was mediocre because season 1 was so good and people were like on the fence with season 2. That season 3 really had to be special. And so I didn't want to fuck up, so I was totally prepared and ready and character and the whole thing. And then he diffused any inhibition, any weirdness. And I was just like, oh God, this guy is on my side. He's, and then we would walk through these scenes and he'd say, hey, do you mind running the lines with me again so I can hear it? And it was great. And I was like, oh my God, that means I have to remember what I'm supposed to say because he couldn't remember. So like in between takes, he's like, what's that one line again that you say? He's like, oh, that's right. And then I'd say this. He's like, okay, I got it. I appreciate that. And we'd sit next to each other. But it just showed me that it's like it's not about acting. It's about really connecting
100%
to certainly people, but also your collaborators, and being professional and giving and caring and letting the ego go and just being present and contribution. Wow. He was so lovely around, his team of hair and makeup people and producers and myself and the other actors. And at the very end of my work experience, I walked up to him. I said, Mahersh, it's a pleasure, man. He goes, he gives me some love. And he was like, just gives me love. And I was just like, this was cool. We've had this moment. It was like, because you never know if you're going to work with the guy, see the guy again. I just remember it feeling so cool, like that he took the time. He's getting ready to go right into another scene. I'm not in that scene. But he took the time to be like, you know what, man? Thank you. And it shows in the work, and it shows in how everyone else's contribution ends up on screen, and how the whole thing cohesively works as a show because everybody's in it together, not out for themselves. So Mahershala is an ambassador, a good shepherd for the way that's supposed to feel that's the way shows are supposed to feel, the way movies are supposed to feel, Awesome. Love the guy. I talked to the casting director, Vicky Thomas, who casts all the Tarantino movies and Detroit and I think Green Book and the True Detective show. And she's a wonderful woman. And I think I read for her after for some other show she's doing after I came back from doing True Detective. And she said, so how was the show? And I said, it was great. And I said, Mahershala. And she goes, I know. He's a special guy. It was just one of those things. You know what I mean? Special human. So that was cool.
Stephen Dorff was really good in that too. I loved this, particularly when he got old.
Yeah.
I love when he was old. That was so like...
the whole writing of that season was awesome. The story was unbelievable.
Nick made me watch it because after season 2, I kind of fell off, and season 1 was fantastic. I know McConaughey was really hitting his, that next level again for himself, and so I love season 1. But season 2, I couldn't really get into it. And I love Vince Vaughn.
I remember, Bo, I was in LA, I think, when you were auditioning for it. I think, or you just had auditioned, or you just won the role. I'm not sure. It was mid 2018. Had you won?
Yeah. Yeah, I auditioned for the thing for True Detective, and it's funny. I love this. I have 2 sons and a daughter, and my youngest son, Atticus, who he's 12 now, so he must have been 10 or something, whatever it was. He warmed me up for the audition, so he read the other parts.
Wow!
Because it was so cool to have my son read the other lines and give me a little tweaking, give me a little feedback, because he'll give you the real skinny. He's not going to sugarcoat it. It's not so good. I don't really believe that, or whatever it is. It's great. Very honest direction. And he really got me grounded in this thing. He got me off book. He got me in this thing. So I auditioned for this, went in, felt really good. I was in a very vulnerable place when I went into the audition because the very morning I auditioned for this, there was an infant child that was close to my family had passed away that morning. We got word he passed away of cancer, and broke my heart the morning I had to wake up and go to this audition. So I had all this vulnerability and feelings, and I was just so open and just vulnerable and humbled, but also like I was kind of feeling like he was with me. This boy Waylon was with me on this ride. He was my angel through the experience. And Vicky Thomas said to me, she goes, when I walked in the room, she goes, you're going to get this, aren't you? Before I even read, she goes, you're going to get this, aren't you? She could see something. Something was going on with me, and she could see. that I was focusing my energy. It wasn't disrupted.
Man, fuck.
I was converting it into something meaningful instead of letting the best of me. I was taking some negative, really sad, hard to hear news and was putting it into my heart, and I was giving it, which I'm an advocate when it comes to coaching, just giving it to the moment and using it to paint the moment with beautiful truth. And so she hired me on the spot. Actually, she didn't hire me on the spot. She goes, "You're going to get this, aren't you?" I read it. They recorded it. And then I didn't hear anything for about a month and a half. And I thought, oh, I didn't get it. And then I got a call. I got it.
Wow.
Like a month and a half later. And I was like on a plane the next day and doing the show.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Bo, what do you think? What do you think in your career so far, like your not best role, but your favorite time? Oh, like, you say your best performance as well, like a mix of both, What do you
That's a really hard question. I really enjoyed doing Deputy on Fox this last season. I don't know if you guys caught any of that stuff yet. If you haven't seen the show, it's I think it's a good show. It got canceled, unfortunately.
Okay.
But season 1, it's a pretty good show, and it's very diverse. And I loved my storyline throughout the thing. It was for me. I really got a chance. It was an offer, which I hadn't had an offer in a while. I didn't have to audition for it. It just came to me, which was great. Steven figured that out somehow because I'd been in touch with Steven after True Detective. Steven and Dorf had been friends or have been friends since 1988. I've known him since he was 15. He was part of that whole group of people I was talking about at the beginning of this interview, and has been my friend, for 30 years. And
wow.
I reconnected with him. He didn't know I got cast in True Detective until I was on the set. He loved that. We had a great time. Then I took off, came back to LA. He finished the show. We stayed in touch. And then when he signed on to do Deputy, he was like, "I want to find something in the show for you. We'll know when the right role comes." And it was one of those things where he saw it, I saw it, and he made a call to the showrunner along with my friend Brian Van Holt, who's also one of the stars of Deputy. Wonderful human, my friend for a bunch of years, fellow surfer, Brian Van Holt. They put calls into the showrunners, and then they made that deal happen within like 2 or 3 hours. And literally, I was on a plane within like 4 or 5 hours of even finding out that role was even in the breakdown. So they made me an offer, and I was on a plane that night. I was on the set the next day. And what I love about it is, to answer your question in more detail, like I just love that as a 49-year-old man turning 50 soon, like the kinds of roles that I'm doing now feel more challenging because I can bring more of my life's adventures so far into these modern day circumstances, whether it be a law enforcement role, corrupt cop, whatever it is. But I always try to put some sort of redeeming quality into the character. And if anybody's watching this who's seen Deputy, has seen my character arc, even though I only appear in 2 episodes, I'm mentioned in almost every episode of the season.
Oh, wow.
And it's, to me, it's a testament to whatever they saw in the first episode. In episode 3 is when I came onto the show, I think, out of 10 episodes, where I made an impact, and it informed the writing. It informed the outcome ultimately of the writing based on my performance. And what I did to inform the writing in that way, consciously and subconsciously, is I made sure, even though there was a corrupt, bad, nefarious sort of intention on the surface of the character, I made sure that we understood by the end of my character's arc that there was some redemption, that I realized that I could have done a better job, and that I've basically strayed from the path and gotten on the wrong side of energetically, right? Gone to the dark side, and so I wanted to be able to resolve that at the end, because I think that that's important, to be able to give viewers something to think about, maybe in their own lives and their own journeys. It's never too late to find redemption or to find the right side of the tracks.
I love that.
Agreed.
Yeah,
that's almost foresight on what this thing, what this role was, what this part was in this series, in this season, what it meant, and that's.
So for me, I think, and that's the most recent thing I've done. That was my favorite thing because it feels very close to where I am now. And then aside from that, I think True Detective was a delight. It just was a little chunk here and there with some great people, great show. It's amazing because it's such a wonderful show. But I think probably I'm most grateful for Point Break, even the
story leading up to that, the audition, getting in there. That's huge.
I haven't met a single person in my life since I did that movie that has a negative thing to say about the movie. Not a single person.
It's a cult classic.
You know when they're like putting on the mask and stuff. That's iconic. When they're putting the mask, is it the Nixon mask? Is it Nixon? It's the president.
Yeah. Nixon, Carter, LBJ, Reagan.
Mm-hmm. You just see that shot where he puts the Nixon mask and the gun, and you're like, Point Break. Like every time you know that,
like,
it's
a classic.
I could show my mum that. She go, "Yeah, this is from Point Break." Like it's just a classic,
film,
for the ages, you know.
So many movies have been inspired by Point Break on so many different levels that pay homage to it. I mean, Fast and Furious is Point Break in cars. I mean, and admittedly so. Paul Walker used to say that, admittedly, loved Point Break, always, Vin Diesel, still say the same thing. But it's just a wonderful, it's the gift that keeps giving. I'm still in touch with, everyone on that film. There's nobody that I'm not in touch with. I mean, really, like, if they're still living and breathing on this planet, and even like in the afterlife, Swayze, it's like he's with us, man. It's like, it's all love. It's all love.
I'm going to send you a photo when we're done here. I was walking through, I don't even think I've told Nick, I was walking through Sydney, the streets of Sydney on my own. I was recording some music, and I looked to the left, and on the corner of a building was a massive mural of Patrick Swayze in Point Break in Sydney. This is in Australia. It was massive. His face, and he had long hair. Have you seen it?
No, I've never seen it.
And it said Bodie Rips.
Yeah. I mean, it's legend. It's legend. It's in the lexicon of movies and surfing and so many generations still continue to appreciate the film, and it's a beautiful thing. And look, I'm honored, even though people have mixed reviews on the reimagined movie that was the sequel. It's not even a sequel. It's really just a remake of the movie, but they called it the reimagined Point Break. I was in that. I had one scene, but but I just love that. It's still a wonderful film, and I love that they did the movie, and I'll tell you why I love they did the movie. I probably shouldn't even speak on it yet, but I'm working in collaboration with both the original writer and the producers of the reimagined movie on Point Break, the TV series, to go to a streaming platform right now. So it's in development.
That's awesome to hear, Bo. And we'll just wrap it up a bit here, Bo. We've had your time here for like over an hour, but
sorry,
I wanted it because I said to Stefan before we got on this podcast, before we got on this interview, I said to Steph, I said, Bo always says what he means. He never opens his mouth unless he really means it. So if you have anything to say to anyone listening to this podcast that, wants to be an actor or wants to do anything that they dream of, what would you say?
I would say that I believe in you. I believe in each and every one of you. It's true. There's only one you. You're enough. Why not you? Step forward into confidence. Stand at the edge of opportunity, and with emotional confidence, jump off the edge, catch that beautiful life wind, and fly. Permission to speak your truth. Listen, guys, before you wrap it up, I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Nick. Nothing but love. So good to see your face. Stefan, and this is so easy. You guys are killing it. I love this.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Can I plug my acting studio? Is that okay? Just because one of the things that would bring me joy would be at some point when it's safe and it's okay to do so, I would look forward to traveling to Australia and seeing each and every one of you. But also, I'd love to get in there and coach actors. I want to see and feel and connect and imagine. And so it's important to me that anybody in Australia who's listening or watching this understands that I appreciate you, and I look forward to broadening my scope and exploring the idea of coming to Oz and connecting with each and every one of you. So can I say you can go to BojesseChristopher.com to find out more about Bojesse Christopher Acting Studio?
100%.
Okay.
Details when I upload the episode as well.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks up, man.
Hey, real quick, was there anything else that you guys wanted to ask, or are you good?
Dude, I've got one more question. I want like a little bit of a story, man, because people, I don't know why, but as humans, like the actors, we always like, oh, they almost got that role, but they did it. Those stories? You have some of those. Like, what's a role that you almost got and like it was like a pretty decent role, or like a big movie, or like, yeah.
So many of them. I mean, let me start with a couple. Like Dazed and Confused was a movie that probably I would have done. Big cast, a lot of kids that were kind of hot and up and coming that made it to the cut. But, you know, Richard Linklater liked me a lot, worked with me, put me in combinations of other actors. And for some reason, I didn't make the final cut, not the final cut of the movie, but didn't make it to being cast in the film, but I was in the mix. There was a movie called School Ties that Brendan Fraser ended up starring in.
Oh, no,
and they cast me in the lead of that film. Stanley Jaffe was directing the film at the time, and something happened to the existing studio boss at Paramount Pictures. I remember I was coming off of Point Break, taking meetings with people. Stanley Jaffe wanted to meet me for the lead of this role. I didn't have to audition. I thought it was great. What a great script. It was a Paramount movie. I think it was probably like a $20 million Paramount movie. Real strong ensemble cast. And then something happened with the changing of the guard at the studio. Stanley Jaffe ended up becoming the studio boss, left the movie. Another director came in, didn't like me for the movie, cast Brendan Fraser, and he was great in it. But I'm just saying, like, that was a missed opportunity because of circumstance. You know what I mean? Like, it was mine, and then the director left, so the new director had his choice kind of thing. There was another one, Newsies, the Kenny Ortega Newsies. It was like a musical that Christian Bale starred in that movie, Newsies. But what happened was Christian Bale was coming off of Emperor of the Sun, the Steven Spielberg movie, and this is 1991, and you know, same age as Christian and another guy that, like, you know, had a little bit more juice at the time, but still was relatively new, and we were all competing in the mix. That Ethan Hawke, Christian Bale, Christian Slater, Stephen Dorff, that same look and feel, right? So I remember Kenny Ortega, who directed all the High School Musical movies and does Glee, and he's that choreography guy, right? Just big guy if you Google him or IMDb him. And he loved me. So he, again, sight unseen, Disney offered me this role. I met with Kenny. I was the lead in this Disney movie that was like a $20 million budgeted movie at Disney. You know, we were going to start rehearsals with actors, and for some reason, I think they probably had a first choice in Christian Bale, but he was unavailable because of Emperor of the Sun, and then he became available somehow, and they pushed me out of the role and put him in the role, and I was like, and you know what would have happened? I think in that very evening, if my agent at the time, who was not a very, almost unfair to say, but was not a very savvy, they should have closed my deal.
Right.
They left it open, and so if they closed my deal, it would have been a breach and that kind of thing. So anyway, lost that one. I had some other kind of fun stuff. I had there was a movie called remember Alive? Do you remember Alive? I don't know if it was about the soccer players from South America, and they crash and they end up eating each other because there was big cast, and then they brought a bunch of people in for all that, and I was in the mix. Got close, was pinned and on hold for that, and then ultimately didn't. I think Ethan Hawke got that one actually. In fact, he did get that one. There's quite a few.
Yeah, I know. Oh, we can see you for hours.
We can see you for hours. I'm a big film buff.
Yeah,
we know you guys are actually actors.
We can talk for ages, man. But it's good having you on, Bo. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, mate.
So fun to talk, guys. I feel slightly narcissistic talking about myself, but I think it's enjoyable.
But we got you.
We got you
for
for this.
Not talk about it ever again. You guys have it. You guys have it on video, so it's all good.
Thanks,
Awesome,
Bo.
mate.
I'll chat to you soon as well, Bo. We'll talk soon, all right?
Appreciate you guys.